and get started. Thanks, Amy, for sharing the slides. So we're here today to talk about LA Nature Quest and how you can get involved. Next slide. So we're going to be doing an iNaturalist training today. You've already got to meet myself, Miguel, and Amy, but we're just going to go around and do a little bit of a self-introduction in a second when we get to the next slide. And we're going to share our name, our pronouns, and what is our favorite nature being in Los Angeles. So I'll start us off. My name's Leela Higgins. I use they, them pronouns, and my favorite nature being in Los Angeles right now is the amazing sulfur shelf fungus that you can find growing off certain trees. And it starts off bright yellow and then it kind of grows like a brain on the tree. Okay, Miguel, over to you.
Thanks, Leela. My pronouns are he, him, and right now coyotes are top of mind. That was my initial bridge to nature as a little boy growing up here in LA, just seeing them in the neighborhood. And right now, for the first time, we have them in our own nature gardens. And so they're definitely top of mind here, even here in Expo Park in south of downtown LA. So yeah, that's me. Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy Jacob Jones. My pronouns are she, her, and my favorite changes all the time, but up there at the top most of the times is a green metallic sweat bee.
I love how shiny and green they are. Thanks, Amy. Next slide. So, why do we care? Why are we doing this here in Los Angeles? Well, first of all nature all over the world matters. But did you know that here in Los Angeles, we are in a biodiversity hotspot? This is a map of the world, as you can see, and you can see in purple right where we are in LA, and much of California is called the California Floristic Province. That means that there are plants and animals that live here and nowhere else in the world. There are many, many thousands of plants that live here, and this is a very special place, but it also means a biodiversity hotspot means that we're under threat. So that means that we've lost some of the habitat and we need to work really hard to keep protecting what's here. And so the valuable data that you help to collect as part of the LA Nature Quest will help to do that. It will help colleagues of mine, Miguel's, Amy's, and Vivian's to make really smart conservation decisions so we can protect the land here in LA and also hopefully across the state. So next slide, we're doing what used to be called the LA BioBlitz Challenge. We have changed names. We're now LA Nature Quest. But this is the map from last year. Altogether, we collected 14,814 observations within the city of Los Angeles of over 1,792 species, and almost 1,700 people took part. And so you are going to be trained and ready to be able to take part in this year's LA Nature Quest. And we couldn't be more excited. On the next slide that Amy's about to click over to, I'm going to show you what the top species were that we found last year. So we found 214 observations of European honeybees, which is a very common species that's, as the name says, from Europe. We found Arizona mantises. Yes, they are from Arizona, but also here in California. We found eastern fox squirrels and awesome western fence lizards, red-tailed hawks, all the way down to amazing milk snails and tree tobacco, and one of my favorites, the Southern California walnut, which is a local native walnut tree. Did you know we even had walnuts in Los Angeles? I know, shocking. So the way that we do this is we are going to use an app called iNaturalist, and that's what we're going to train you on today. On this next slide, basically it's just like iNaturalist is like what I say Facebook for nature nerds. So it's a mobile application that you can put on your phone, you can use it on your desktop computer, and then when you're out and about with just your phone on you, you can take a picture like this, a picture of this little caterpillar, and then you upload it to iNaturalist, and then nature nerds here in LA and all over the world can help to identify what you found. You can discuss those findings. to show you what this looks like here in Los Angeles, on the next slide, we have an awesome picture of a kid who took a picture of a tiny, well, not that tiny, a really cool bug, a leaf-footed bug, because it has those really cool flanges on the legs that look like leaves, and then uploaded it to iNaturalist, and then it became a data point for science. That little orange dot on the map, it's an actual data point for science that scientists can use. So, how do we do this? Not only are you going to get to learn how to use iNaturalist, you're also going to learn about the steps that it takes to become a nature observer. So, next slide, you only need to do 4 things. You need to go explore to find nature. And during the LA Nature Quest, that could even be inside your house. It could be out of your window. It could be in your own backyard. It could be in your schoolyard. It could be anywhere you feel safe and comfortable to go look for nature. If you want to go further afield, it could be in a local park. It could be up in Griffith Park, even. You could join us for our upcoming program, which we'll tell you about at the end. And then after you find that nature, you're going to look at it, you're going to observe it. Maybe you're going to use your eyeballs, maybe you're going to use a magnifier, or maybe you're going to use the magnifier on your camera, on your phone. And so that's the next step. 3, photograph it. And then 4, we're going to share that observation on iNaturalist, and that's where we will help to identify what you found. Now, again, we're really looking for wild plants and animals, no pets, no potted plants, and no, oh my gosh, what's the third one? No pets, no potted plants, and no
People.
people. No people. Thanks, Amy. We don't need a picture of your brother or sister. We don't need a picture of potted plants, and we don't need a picture of pets. And that includes zoo animals, because we don't need data on that. So I'm going to hand it over now to Miguel to talk about and give you some advice on how to explore.
Thanks, Leela. So yeah, I mean, exploring is the best part, in my point of view, is just kind of looking for habitat. So um, basically anywhere that can provide food, water, or shelter for wildlife, and you make sure that you're looking up, down, around, and sorry, on the ground, straight ahead at the horizon, because wildlife can be literally anywhere. Next slide. Um, and safety first, of course, making sure that when you are picking something up, you're lifting it towards you, so you have something protecting you between yourself and the animal, and so it doesn't run straight at you. Also, just be careful about your footing. Make sure you have proper shoes, bringing water, hat, sunscreen, all those types of things to make sure that you're safe. And also make sure that the wildlife is safe as well. So try not to handle any animals if you don't need to. Basically, you never do. And just kind of enjoy kind of wildlife from afar and take some good photos, and I think that's kind of our goal, is to just capture the moment and make sure that we're capturing what's in front of us without disturbing it and letting it kind of be wild. Next. Yeah, so yeah, kind of skipped ahead there. But yeah, just making sure that we're very aware of kind of our proximity to wildlife, and making sure that we remember that we're in their home, whether it's Griffith Park or in our own yard. That is their home. That plant, under that trash can, whatever it is, that's their home, and we need to be respectful of that. And one thing to just keep wildlife safe is just not touching it. Even like if it's an animal that seems fine on our hands, sometimes the oils of our skin or our sunblock can impact it. So there's so many ways that we can potentially harm wildlife. So let's just keep our distance, and yeah, have fun out there. Next slide. So, like I said, looking for places where animals might hide, find food, like I said, shelter, food, or water, those are the best places to find these hot spots in activity. A lot of times, especially if it's a sunny day, places where there's like a limited amount of shade out there or flowers, that's where you're going to see a lot of bees. And staying still and waiting for those animals to kind of do their thing and feel comfortable around you is one way to do that. And just kind of looking everywhere. Next slide. Yeah, so like I said, reminder to look up. There's birds that are flying. There's tree squirrels that are going up power lines or potentially up trees. So making sure that you're very aware that these animals are potentially right above you. So don't focus too much on the ground or in one using just one perspective. Next. Yeah, so like I said, a lot of these animals are trying to stay out of sight to avoid predators, avoid us. And also these, whether it's a log, a rock, or a trash can, they create these microclimates for these animals. And so, yeah, feel free to lift things up, move dirt around, leaf litter around, but try and put it back the way it was because it's creating a very special environment for that animal. Next slide. And of course, yeah, observe. There's different tools you can use, like vials if you have magnifying glasses, binoculars, the zoom on on your camera phone or your digital camera. And so we'll get into some of that right now. Next. So yeah, there's some great tools out there that magnify these animals so that you can safely view them or temporarily observe them in a jar or something before returning them to where they need to go. But um, those are really great ways and good alternatives to handling them with your hands. Next. And then I'm going to go through some tips on how to photograph wildlife for science. Next. So these are kind of the main kind of bullets that I'm going to be hitting, capturing the moment, focusing, make sure you're taking photos at different angles, um, making sure you're very aware of shade and the impacts that has on your photo, and then knowing your own device, whether it's a camera phone or a digital camera, and also some additional tools. And some of these tools you wouldn't consider tools for taking photos, but they are. A lot of creative ways to do this. Next. So this is a good example. So this is there's a lot of instinct that we have to getting the perfect photo or angle, lighting, etc. before taking that first photo. But you got to remember that these animals are not models. They're not paid to be there. They're going to do their thing and do what they think is best for them. And so they might run away before you get that perfect angle or zoom or whatever. So we always recommend just taking a photo. So believe it or not, there's an animal here in this photo. And this person did the right thing. This is Maze Connolly, our former coworker, and took a photo of this animal, even though some of you might not even see it. Next, just in case that animal ran away. And then she took a step photo closer, took another photo, and probably you can see it at this point. Next photo. And then here the lizard, and I'm sure you noticed it by now, is cooperating. And at this point, you can easily see at least it's a lizard, even if you don't know your lizards. But if you even use this photo, zoom, sorry, next photo. Um, you can continue to now look at the features and even zoom in, crop the photo to get kind of the unique identifiers of the species that you need to identify it to species. And people that are reviewing these photos that are experts on local lizards will be easily able to identify it even from one of those previous photos that are further away, taken from further away. Next slide. And there's a really nice zoomed in photo of it, beautiful Western fence lizard. And so that's ideal situation, but this lizard could have been gone a long time ago. So May's got lucky and had this great photo sequence or series for this great example we're sharing with you today. Next slide. And then focus is important as well. Obviously, sometimes those animals, like I said, are going to move away before you have time to get it in perfect focus. But do your best and take multiple photos if you can, just in case that first one wasn't as good of in focus as the next one. And so this is of the same animal, same ladybug. And the one on the left is not in focus, but on the right is better and more focus, not perfect focus, but you have enough information there to be able to identify it. And if the animal were to stick around, hopefully you can get even more in focus photo. Next. And then this is another kind of definition of focus is kind of zooming in on the actual organism you mean to get identified by the iNaturalist community. The photo on the left is great. Nothing's blurry, but someone trying to identify this for you is not going to know exactly which of these animals or plants, excuse me, we're trying to get identified or observe here. But on the right, they did the right thing and zoomed in on the kelp here, and so that the person can who's identifying it can easily tell you exactly what species that is. Next slide. And different angles, and so there's some different taxonomic groups, but mostly all taxonomic groups require multiple angles to be photographed so that you can definitely, without doubt, um, figure out or basically display that this is the animal or species that is in this photo, and it's not some other species that is very similar in morphology. And so this is a snail, and as you can see, there's multiple angles being taken here because all these kind of put together help snail experts identify this to species and not confuse it for another similar looking species. Next slide. Same with slugs. So you get the breathing hole on the side there in the middle, you get the top ventral part, dorsal, and then also the ventral part of the animal, the slug. And all these, again, together, just like those snail photos, will help snail experts be confident in what species this is and not confuse it for a similar species. Next. And it goes the same for plants. So what we recommend for plants is kind of taking a photo of as much of the plant as you can from a zoomed out perspective. So you can get kind of an idea of the size of the plant, the structure, all those types of things. And then you get a zoomed in look at the leaf and both sides of it, because sometimes that is really helpful. And then especially if you have a plant that is fruiting and that's the season that you're in, that's even more helpful because that's another helpful clue of figuring out exactly what species this is if it has a similar leaf structure to another locally occurring plant. So that's all really helpful information for people to, again, be able to confidently identify your plant to species. Next slide. And that is a toyon, by the way. And so this is a nudibranch in the water. And so being aware of sometimes how shade can be really helpful in dealing with issues where the light or the reflection of light onto the water surface can really make it hard for people to see the animal or get a really close look at all the features of the animal if there's a lot of glare. So on the right, someone used a hat or some sort of um, thing to give this animal some shade so they can get a better look at the animal without the distraction of the glare. So that was a great idea. Next slide. And then know your camera, know how to use the focus, exposure, and if possible, how to use your cropping tools beforehand. That's not as important as when you're in the moment, but the focus and the exposure settings are really helpful right in that moment where you're trying to get a good photo of the animal. Also know if your phone is water resistant versus waterproof, versus not at all. Before you start dunking it in the water to get a shot of an animal, or you're out in the rain all day and it happens. So be careful out there and don't ruin your very expensive phone or camera. Next slide. So this is kind of looking at your exposure settings. This is for an iPhone device. And so this is something that I learned from our coworker Maze. So you know the focus box that you see there, that yellow box, there's a little sun icon on the right of that box. And if you slide your finger up and down, that will either increase or decrease the exposure. The higher you go, the brighter the image will be. And then the lower you go, the darker the image will be. And that's really helpful when you're in an area that's really shady and dark or very bright and allows you to get that image that you want. Especially helpful when the animal, it's not an animal that's going anywhere anytime soon, like a snail, or it's a plant that's obviously not going anywhere. So that's a really cool tool and been really helpful getting those really crisp photos for identifiers to look at. Next slide. And then now we're into the sharing part of the process. Next slide.
And this
All
is where
right, now it's
I'm
Amy's
going to
taking
step
over.
in.
Nice.
So here's the QR code that you can use to download iNaturalist. It is probably for the iPhone. Um, One thing to be aware of is that iNaturalist varies somewhat on different platforms. So you have there's two versions, one for the iPhone and one for the Android. And I'm mostly talking about the iPhone tonight. So when you open it for the first time, you'll be asked to create your account and enter username and password. You may or may not want to make your username anonymous. iNaturalist will also ask you for certain permissions, including the use of your phone's camera, access to your photos. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself now with the slide. And you'll want to make sure you have the location services turned on as well, because knowing where something was spotted is very important for identification and for researchers. Additionally, iNaturalist will ask you for permission to use your microphone if you record a sound like a bird's call. So once you've created your account, you're in the observation screen and you can see all the observations that you've made over time. In the bottom left corner, you can kind of toggle between a grid view or a list view of your observations. And now we get to the fun part. So you're in iNaturalist and you want to make an observation. So the AI camera is the default. You click that sparkly little camera icon there, and iNaturalist's AI waves its magic wand, and it starts to identify what you actually see before you in real time. So in this case, I pointed the camera at this plant, and it said, "Hey, I think this is Cleveland sage," and it showed the little sparkly icon there to let me know like we've got an identification. So you press that to take the photo, and then it'll keep analyzing it for the best identification and give you a suggestion. And then you can press save. Or if you think it's way off, like earlier today, I was trying to take a picture of a squirrel, but there were a lot of plants around it. So even though it could see the squirrel, it was identifying it for a plant that was nearby. And this is great for plants. And also for instant gratification. Plants, as Miguel mentioned earlier, they don't move around a lot, so it's really easy to adjust your camera for better angles. But if you're like me and you want to take pictures of a lot of other living things, there are some options to do that. So that same sparkly icon camera, go ahead and press down on that. And then other options for making observations are going to show up. Let's go ahead and look at some of them now. So by clicking just the regular camera photo, you can take multiple photos of a single organism. I was kind of chasing this pigeon around USC the other day from a distance. I didn't want to disturb it too much. And the AI built into iNaturalist is still going to give you a suggestion. And they said it's the rock pigeon. Once I click save, it takes me back to that observation screen. But it hasn't actually uploaded the observation yet. Right now, it's just living on my camera on my phone. So if you click in the top green bar, upload observations, then it's going to go ahead and upload to iNaturalist. And then something else that I use a lot is my photo library. I like to take a lot of pictures and then choose just the best ones to actually add to iNaturalist. So to choose from your photo library, click on the photo icon. You can select one or more photos. iNaturalist is going to analyze it for an identification and give you a suggestion. In this case, it came up with the eastern fox squirrel, which I completely agree with, and you click save. And the last feature for making an observation that I really want to talk about today is recording a sound. This is something that I do a lot. Often I can hear a bird, but I can't get a photo of it, so I'll record the call. You do this by clicking on the green microphone. It's going to bring up the recording screen. You click on the red microphone and it will start recording. So when I'm done recording, I can click on the red stop button and a green check mark will appear. Once that appears, I go ahead and check that. And because iNaturalist does not identify sound recordings in real time, it takes you immediately to the observation itself where you have a chance to save it. And it'll go back to that observation screen or upload it right away. Don't worry too much because other people on iNaturalist will be listening to those calls and be helping you with identifications. And if you already know what it was, maybe you knew that it was a California scrub jay or a house sparrow, you can actually go into your observation at this point and edit it and choose what it is. You can also see on the image on the right under identification, there are a whole bunch of circles with just little different icons in them. If you just click on the bird one, it's automatically going to put in an identification of bird. Likewise with plant or arachnid, snail, mammal. So if you don't know what something is specifically, you can give a really general identification. And giving an identification to your observations is super important because without one, people won't necessarily know that your observation is there waiting for an identification. So even by saying this is a lizard or this is a bird, it's going to move it in front of the eyes of experts around the world who will be able to help you with that identification. So we talked earlier about how with most of these camera features, it's going to take you to, once you save it, it's going to take you to the observation screen instead of the observation itself. And you will Before you upload it, it's always a good idea to review it and make sure all the information is correct, especially if there are any details you want to change, like privacy or to mark something as captive or cultivated. Um, those are a couple important features that I'll talk a little bit about in the next couple of slides. But first, just click on the observation. In the top right corner, there is a pencil, and you can click on that to open the editing screen. And then you'll be able to do a lot of different things and make sure each feature is just right, is the way you want it to be. So once you go to the editing screen, you will have an opportunity to add more photos if you'd like by clicking on the plus sign. You can check your location. You can even, when clicking on that, zoom in really closely on a map. Like if you say, oh, I know I was actually at this tree in this park, it's usually good enough to get you just to that specific tree. And if you didn't have your location services turned on ahead of time, it allows you to enter a location. Then you can identify it if it didn't already have an identification. And then check your geoprivacy, whether something is wild, add notes to it if you'd like. And you can either save it here or upload it now. So I mentioned earlier that the identification is really important. And if you were using the AI feature when you made your observation, the ID is going to automatically be in the observation. But if you didn't do that when you made it, you have a chance to do that now. So by clicking on the ID with AI button, you'll be given a list of suggestions. Each one is marked by a percentage of certainty that what is shown might actually be your animal, your plant, etc. If you think it's one of the other suggestions, you can go ahead and select that. You can also get more information, and you can use a search function to really narrow it down if you know specifically what it is. And let's talk about the search field a little bit. So this is something that I do a lot if I happen to know like what type of ladybug it is. In this case, when I made this observation, I was pretty sure it was the eastern fox squirrel because those are the ones that we see here in the cities. So I just started typing it in, and I didn't get very far when eastern fox squirrel popped up as an option. And so you can just go ahead and select it there. But again, if you know it's a squirrel, but you really don't know what type of squirrel, you can put in something broad like squirrels. And somebody else, like Miguel especially, who is one of our mammal experts at the museum, will be able to narrow that down further for you. Okay, one of those other important features that I wanted to talk about is the wild status. So under other data, there's a little drop down that says organism is wild. This means it's not put there or taken care of by people, like this butterfly, the squirrel that I was photographing earlier today, and a weed growing out of the pavement. Now, things that are not wild, you mark as captive cultivated. Pets, zoo animals, landscape plants, including city trees that you might find in the park, along the sidewalk, or at your school. These are not wild, and these are not what we really encourage you to put in to the LA Nature Quest. We want to know what's happening in this city and which plants, animals, fungi are occurring naturally in our environment. The second really important concept that I always want to make sure people understand in a training is geoprivacy. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that means. Geoprivacy really controls how people see where your observation was made. Open is the default for iNaturalist, and I use that the most, especially when I'm in public places. Obscured, though, is great if you're at home, school, or an after-school program. You don't want people to know exactly where you were. It'll just plot a spot on a map randomly, rather than showing the exact location. Now, private seems like it would be the one that you want to use for that purpose, But when you select private, it actually doesn't appear on the map at all. Only you can see where you made that observation. It also will not appear in the LA Nature Quest project, and we want to make sure all your observations appear. So we encourage you to use either the open or the obscured settings. After you have made your observations and made your identifications, you'll probably want to check back in on activity and see how others are identifying your observations. So click on that bell, and it will take you to the activity screen. You can select an observation, and then you can see right underneath my ID for Eastern Fox Squirrel, another iNaturalist user came along and they agreed with me that yes, it's an Eastern Fox Squirrel. Because two people have agreed with the same species, a naturalist's guideline is 2 out of 3 people making identifications when they're in agreement to species. It becomes what's called research grade. And this means that researchers and scientists all over the world will actually have access to these observations and may use it in their research, which is super exciting. And one of the reasons we love projects like the LA Nature Quest and the projects that we run at the museum. But to participate in iNaturalist, you do not have to have all of your observations become research grade. Not everything can. For instance, a lot of insects that I take pictures of, especially other arachnids like spiders, you need to see under a microscope in order to figure out what specific species it is. So it's okay if things don't make it to research grade, and it's okay to be really conservative with your identifications also, rather than forcing something to become research grade unless you really know what it is. Now, the version that I've been showing you is relatively new to iNaturalist, and these are a lot of the basic features that will come when you first open the app. If you're interested in exploring it a little bit more, you can go ahead and click on the menu and then to your settings. In the settings, at the very top, you can toggle it over to advanced mode. Once you do that, a lot of those features I was talking about in terms of editing it will actually come up as you make the observations. So that's one reason you might want to do that. But if you're just getting started with iNaturalist and you want it to be pretty easy, go ahead and do what we just talked about. You'll have plenty of time to explore all the different extras and settings that there are in advanced mode. Now, all of you Android users, I definitely don't want to forget that you're in our audience tonight. And I want to make sure you know a little bit about how to use the app that you have. So we talked about identifications on the iPhone. On the Android, it's called What Did You See? You can compare your photo to the suggestions below. You can still learn more by clicking on an item. You can go ahead and select an item, or you can search if you'd like. Something else that they call a little bit different on the Android is the location visibility, what we were calling geo-privacy on the iPhone. Still has the same options though: open, obscured, apologies for my dog in the background, or private. And then marking something as captive cultivated. On the Android, instead of asking if something is wild, it's going to ask if it's captive or cultivated. The default is to have it unchecked for wild. But if it's not wild, mark yes to make sure that we know and the researchers around the world know if something is captive or cultivated. That way they know if something is occurring naturally in their environment, and it helps us all be good data stewards and make that data clean and meaningful for scientists. The last thing I want to show you on the Android is how you can check your activity there. So you can see all those other different identifications that are coming in. So click on the menu in the top left corner, select activity, and then you'll have the list of identifications that others have made. And you can click on those identifications to see what they are and agree with them or not. You don't have to agree with something just because somebody else says that's what it is. We always encourage you to be conservative with your identifications and only go as far as you know it is. So there are a lot of plants and even some birds that I just don't know. And so I will enter something like plant or bird as I make my observations. And now I think we have some time for some questions.
Thank you, Amy. That was amazing. Yes, we are going to turn to the Q&A portion. I already see that Stephanie Sparks at one point was able to message us and say, yay, learned something cool and useful. And that was right after Miguel shared about the different ways of being able to look at your focus and adjust your exposure on your phone. I was also very excited when I learned how to do that. Game changer for me. So if you have any questions, you can write them in the chat and we will get to those questions as they come in. As you're maybe thinking of your questions, I just wanted to ask Amy, what is your favorite feature of the new app? Because you've been using iNaturalist for a really long time, and I just wanted to find out what your favorite feature of the new app is.
That is a really good question. It might be getting that real-time identification for plants. I was amazed just how quickly that comes up.
Yeah, as I've been playing around with it, I've also noticed that, and it's very exciting to be able to just take your phone out and move around and say, oh, what is this tree? I often go I went to visit a friend who's lives in a different part of the city, and I was like, what is this plant in your backyard? I don't know. Let me pull out my iPhone and see if I can figure it out using iNaturalist and then have it be a data point at the same time. So just wanted to remind everyone, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We are here to answer any questions you have about iNaturalist.
I see a question, Leela. It says, in what situations would someone be observing non-wild organisms? I don't understand why that option is even there.
Great question. So imagine you are in a restoration zone, a place where some land managers have decided to do some restoration work and try to get plants and hopefully the animals that are associated with those plants to come back. Say it's a landfill that has been filled in like 40 years ago and they're building a park there. And the local land manager is like, we're going to plant all of these native plants. And so one of the things that we know can be really helpful is if we document restoration plants, and those would count as captive or cultivated. So they are receiving care from a human being. Maybe the plan, the when it gets a little bit gray and a little bit confusing is maybe the plan is that 10 years down the road, they're going to take all those plants aren't going to be receiving any water anymore. They're not going to be receiving any human care. And then at that point, I would probably not mark it as captive or cultivated because they were once planted by humans, but then they have started to care for themselves. They don't receive any watering. They don't receive any pruning or anything. But yeah, in that like in between zone, that is a cultivated plant. And you're right. Why do we want captive animals ever observed? I personally don't see any reason to ever put like a pet dog on there, a pet goldfish on there, or an animal in an aquarium. The aquarium already knows that that species exists and is in their collection. So there's no real point for having that on iNaturalist. And that's some feedback that we have given them in the past. We'd love it to have captive separated out from cultivated. They have not taken that advice yet. Maybe they will one day. I see another question from Katie. It was mentioned to take multiple photos of a single animal. Do we upload each picture individually or are they grouped together as one observation? Great question, Katie. I feel like I've spoken for a long time, so maybe Miguel or Amy want to answer this.
I love this question because there are some iNaturalist best practices that we didn't actually get into here tonight. If you want to look at their website, there's even more functionality. You can kind of learn a little bit more about the culture of iNaturalist, which is usually very friendly and supportive. It's a great community to be part of. When you're taking pictures, like taking multiple pictures, you will group them into one observation as long as it's the same individual organism. So you don't want to look around you and say, oh, here's a squirrel and a flower and a duck, and put all of those together in one observation. Each one should be a different observation. But it's fine to put 5 pictures of the same plant showing different features. That's really helpful.
Yeah, and you can, like Amy said earlier, you can upload one picture and then you can go back in and add more on that little plus button in there's a little box that will be to the left of your photo, and you can add more photographs in at that point. Sometimes you're like not lucky enough to get like a whole series of the lizards like Miguel showed earlier. Sometimes you're like, I got that one photo and then it like darted off. I got one good photo and then maybe a really blurry one. Which is always it's always good when you at least get the one, because I've definitely, as a person who takes a lot of insect photos, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get the picture, I'm getting closer, and then I didn't capture the moment. Leela, come on, you do this as a living, you know what to do, and sometimes I forget. Um, Great questions so far, everyone. Let us know if you have any more. If you don't, we can go forth, but maybe Miguel's unmuting because he has his own question.
No, there's a question in the Q&A that's asking, is it true that we can photograph scats and share to iNaturalist to identify a species? That's a wonderful question, and one of my favorite things to photograph actually and add to iNaturalist. Um, Sometimes it gets tricky. If you do see poop on the ground, um, I would use something like a coin or a key or your foot for scale, multiple angles. If you can break it apart a little bit to show the contents, that's helpful to show that it's an omnivorous animal versus a strictly carnivorous animal. If it looks like a canid or dog type of poop, breaking it up is helpful. You can, if you see like mostly dog food in there, that's helpful at really saying, oh, that's definitely a dog and not a coyote. Anyway, but yes, we definitely support that, and I actually appreciate seeing poop on iNaturalist. So thank you.
Thanks, Miguel. And I've definitely was a pass that one off to you as our resident mammal expert. Uh, you didn't say though that maybe we would also like pictures of
Yeah,
tracks as well
yeah.
as scat.
I was just gonna say that, yeah. So tracks, feathers, bones. So animal sign, that is just as good as a photo, because sometimes if they're a nocturnal animal, that's what they leave behind. Basically all you have to work with. And so there's a lot of people that really are good at identifying those types of tracks and signs, and it's a great kind of alternative to taking a photo of a live animal. Dead animals also count as well. I'll say that too.
I've definitely been known to pull over on the side of the road and then walk down and take pictures of roadkill. I feel it's always really sad when you see roadkill, at least for me. But I feel like at least if that animal can then be a data point for science, even though it's no longer here with us anymore, I think that that can be a good thing. And maybe it can illuminate some issues of roads and inaccessibility for wildlife. And also, I know that there's a project that used to be around called the California Roadkill Observation System, or CROSS, and they were sharing the data to help get speed restrictions in certain places. More obviously, that usually counts in more rural spaces where if there's a lot of incidences of vehicle and wildlife kind of interactions or animals being hit, then that data can be shared, and then maybe the roadway speed limit can be reduced. And that's like a beautiful way that community science data can get used in ways that we maybe weren't expecting. I think we're really close. Oh, we have one more question. Are we more interested in learning the location of species or the presence of non-native species? That is a great question. Katie, it's hard to say because guess what? Hundreds and thousands of scientists use this platform to get the data to ask and answer questions. So maybe you took one picture of a animal crossing a road, and maybe 7 scientists want that observation to be able to answer their questions. Maybe there's a person who's studying that specific species. Let's say it's a coyote. Maybe there's a scientist who's studying coyotes. Maybe there's a scientist that's studying all animals that are mammals that cross roads in urban spaces. Maybe there is a researcher who's really just curious about roadways and how animals interact with that space in a more negative way, not using it to cross. So scientists all over the world can use this data set, and we don't know how they will get used. So yes, a scientist might be out there doing work on invasive species, and there are maybe people who are like, I really want to know what the distribution of these spiders are. iNaturalist has actually helped to do what's called a range expansion. For some scientists, they're like, we know that this species of ladybug lives here, and then maybe they found another outlier of that ladybug in the next state over or the next county over, and then we can understand how things are changing through time. And obviously, with climate change happening and temperatures changing, species might have to move to adapt. But we definitely want more wild plants and animals. Our native species are the ones that we want most, but it is also really important to get non-native species, especially if it's something maybe you've never seen before. It could be the first time that that species being found here in LA County, and then scientists can actually go and study it and maybe stop it from spreading in a really negative way. Okay, another question. To be clear, is it okay to record observations of captive for our own records, but not upload? Stephanie Sparks is asking. You could make that a private observation, and then it would be just there for you to see on your own iNaturalist, but it wouldn't be something that anyone else can see. So that's something that you could do if you'd want. Obviously, you get to use iNaturalist however you would like.
Exactly. They allow you to have that option. So there's no rule not to use it, just as long as you're responsible and mark it as captive cultivated. And, especially like if you're in a restoration area, showing the species interaction with that pollinator and the plant may actually be of use to somebody.
Yeah, Stephanie specifically said captive, so I didn't think about the cultivated implication.
Sorry, you're so right.
That's okay, because it's a blurry line anyway. Okay, Katie asks, is there some version of the project on exhibit at the museum? Why, yes, there is/was. I'm not sure if it's been updated, but in the Nature Lab, there was a wall where you could go and look through iNaturalist observations. And I know that they were working on fixing it, but I haven't been down there in the last few weeks, so I'm not sure if it's up and live again. But if you've been to the museum in the Nature Lab exhibit, which Miguel and I both got to work on, and Miguel actually worked really hard to get the iNaturalist map in that space populated with lots of observations from around LA. That's probably what you're talking about. So we're at 6:56. We're going to go to the next slide. And if there's any more questions, we can maybe get to them. And you can also email us with those questions. But We hope that you are inspired to go out and help us document wildlife, plants, animals, mushrooms, sea creatures, things along the coast in the city of Los Angeles. We really need your help for LA Nature Quest. And this is the map from 2024, but you can go onto the Los Angeles Public Library's website, and every single grid on this map has a different color. And if it's green, that means there are observations in there. If it's gray and it's not green, that means there are no observations there. And so we need your help to turn the map green. And that will be something that you can go check out on the LA Public Library website. And I can't wait to go see if my neighborhood is green in Koreatown. Next slide. We also would love to invite you to this upcoming event on October 4th. Miguel, Amy, and myself will be there. It is free. Vivian, who started the program off tonight, has done an amazing job organizing this event. All you need to do is scan that QR code and it will send you to an Eventbrite so you can sign up and get your ticket. We'll be tabling there. There'll be us from the Natural History Museum. There'll be folks from the public library. There'll be people from LA Rec and Parks. There'll be people from the Rangers will be there. And there'll also be people from Friends of Griffith Park and so many others. We would love to see you there. We're going to go do some nature walks together. If you have questions and want to try out iNaturalist, or if you have problems between now and then, we can answer all your questions and we can help you find some amazing species. And I'm going to turn it over to Miguel because he is so familiar with Griffith Park and he's going to tell you some amazing species that you might see there.
Yeah, next slide. Yeah, I just wanted to hype you all up about Griffith Park if you aren't already. So it's a really unique park. It's 5 times the size of Central Park, has rugged wilderness built within it, but has so many other things that make people fall in love with it. And it was my neighborhood park, my local wilderness, and I love sharing with people. And so this photo of these deer leaving the park really showcases how valuable it is. It's this big, massive wilderness area in the middle of the city that deer can even take advantage of, but has its unique barriers with freeways and cities surrounding it as well, which make it just a very interesting place. Next slide. And over the years, I've been able to document wildlife in the park, and you can just see just here is just mammal diversity that we have found in the park using technology like camera traps. But I wanted to spotlight the gray fox on the bottom there, which is a animal that doesn't really live in a lot of areas of LA. Same with the western gray squirrel in the top left corner. But Griffith Park is one of those remaining spots in LA where you can potentially find these animals. But you can also find more common species like cottontail rabbits, other squirrels like the fox squirrel, the ground squirrel, and then coyotes from time to time will pop up during the day. But I just wanted to also give it a shout out because it's been such an inspiring place. Finding a mountain lion that I discovered in 2012 and bats that we didn't think existed in LA for over a decade were all found in Griffith Park, really showcasing that at any time there could be a huge discovery being made in this park and inspire us to do other work and think about our neighborhoods and ecosystems uh, differently. Now, because of this work, I've looked deeper within LA's urban core, gotten the community involved with the help of our team to look at where else are bats living, where else are gray foxes living and squirrels. So this is kind of really this really inspirational place that I hope you all kind of can experience with us on Saturday, October 4th. And I look forward to seeing you there. Next slide, I guess. Yeah, and if you are out there in your neighborhood or in Griffith Park, make sure to use that hashtag if you share your observations on social media. And there's these handles at the bottom as well to tag our community science program, Nature in LA, the museum at large, NHMLA, or the LA Public Library at LAPL. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we hope to see you on iNaturalist or in Griffith Park.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
We'll see you
you.
on October 4th. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Leela. Thank you, Miguel.
Of course.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.